Hello and welcome to SIBOS 2018 in Sydney. I'm Hannah Wallace and with me now is the CEO of Identitii, Nick Armstrong, and we're going to be talking about KYC and KYT. Hello Nick, thank you very much for speaking with us today.
Thanks Hannah.
Now firstly, KYT is certainly on the rise, so firstly could you tell me why is this and why is it so important?
KYT, or Know Your Transaction, is a term that Identitii launched at Finovate Fall in 2016. And we believe that Know Your Customer, or KYC, is no longer good enough. We think you need rich information about each and every transaction, and that's what we call KYT. So Identitii's created an overlay to existing payment networks like the SWIFT network, but it could work across any other network, that enables the enrichment of additional supporting information that wouldn't typically fit into a traditional payment message. And that's KYT information. Could be things like remittance information, purpose of payment information, other supporting information, invoices, documents, etc.
Does it complement or replace KYC, do you think? And why is KYC alone not sufficient, would you say?
Sure, I think it extends on KYC. So we see KYC, or really the identity of a person or an entity that's involved in a transaction, as only being one of those data points. Now banks need to know what their payments are for, and their customers also want to know, we hear this all the time, can you give me more information about what my payment is? Gets credited in my account, there's no information, and it takes a long time to reconcile. So that's the sort of information that we're talking about, so we think KYC is just one data point, and there's many other data points in there.
All right, and what additional due diligence controls and benefits does it offer?
So I'll give you an example. Money transfer businesses often find it hard to get a bank account. In many cases they're deemed too high risk, and all banks that are clearing for them have no visibility over their underlying transaction. So using Identitii's overlay to collect up additional information from a money transfer business and include that into a traditional SWIFT MT103 message would give the clearing bank visibility over all of those transactions, and in addition gives them an auditable record of information, so that if a regulator comes in 4 years down the track and says, please show me what those payments were for and who was involved, then that can be done easily using the Identitii platform.
Okay, and finally, what are the benefits of capturing data at the transaction level?
So Overlay Plus is designed as an overlay, which we disagree with rip and replace. One of the benefits of that is that you can use your existing legacy infrastructure and overlay to get the full benefit of Know Your Transaction. And we also have a range of business APIs that enable connectivity with a channel. So that could be a corporate internet bank channel, it could be any other banking channel, including mobile. When you collect it upfront from the customer, you can actually stop it before it comes through missing information. And that way the operational burden of the bank will be lowered significantly, because there will be less payment exceptions, less payments that get held up on the way through, and all the information should be provided by the customer up front, so they won't get a call a day later asking them for more information.
Nick, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to Finextra TV. I'm Hannah Wallace and we're here at SIBOS 2019 in London. Kindly joining me now in the studio is Nick Armstrong, CEO of Identitii, and we're talking about taking data out of the payment message and using blockchain to handle data differently. Hello Nick, thank you very much for joining us. It's lovely to see you again.
Thanks Hannah, you too. It's great to be back.
So as I've said, we're talking about taking data out of the payments message, but this is quite unusual considering we're at a SWIFT conference. To start off, could you tell us the thoughts behind that, please?
Certainly, Hannah. So the need for data continues to grow. We're seeing new regulations around the world, including the ISO 2022 migration, which is being driven by SWIFT. And all of these new regulations require more data for banks and their customers to understand what their transactions are for. The problem is that a lot of the underlying messages don't carry enough information. And so really what Identitii is talking about is creating a parallel system for managing data in a secure and trusted way, which we think is really needed now. This is a new paradigm that we're entering into now.
All right, and how do you go about doing this? How do you separate data from the payments message?
Well, one way of doing that would be to create a central cloud Dropbox where all of the information that's associated with a transaction can be stored. The challenge with doing that is that it doesn't allow for permissioning of data at an attribute level. So what I mean by that is invoices, purchase orders, remittance information all need to carry separate permissions with them. And so what Identitii does is uses blockchain to create an information layer that sits over the top of the existing payment infrastructure like the SWIFT network, and we create a little unique identifier called a token that just goes into any type of payment message and allows that rich information layer to be linked to the underlying transaction. We know that the Rails do a really, really good job of moving settlement instructions around, but a poor job of carrying information, and that's why we look to create this information overlay that sits on top.
And what's the significance of it in this area?
Certainly. Well, tokenization is a simple concept, really. It's about creating a unique identifier that links to additional information, all of the rich information that Identitii can link up to a transaction. The actual token itself is just a string of letters and numbers, so it doesn't mean anything to anyone unless you're actually running our application. The great thing about a token is that you can switch data on and off. With the token, you can link up information post the transaction being settled, which is great if there's requests for information that go back to a customer. The other thing that the token can do is fit into any type of message that this information wouldn't fit into. So if you're a large corporate customer of a bank, you can use the token to re-enrich your payment with all of the remittance information to enable better accounts receivable reconciliation, less requests for information back to the bank. So it's a pretty simple concept, but there's a lot of deep technology under the hood.